A little early.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. You know. How's your foot?
Oh, it's fine. I did some baking and some cooking this weekend, so I was able to do that by sitting on a bar stool. So
Yeah, as long as you don't drop anything, you're okay.
oh, I did drop stuff, but
Okay. You have your sous chefs, the dogs, to clean up.
well, yeah, depends on what I drop.
Yeah, really. You know. Good morning, Nancy.
Morning.
How are you today?
Good, and you? I have a couple edits to the minutes, okay?
Okay.
You know,
Great.
very minor, but you know.
Perfect. Thank you for reading them.
Nancy, if you just want to, if you've marked them up somewhere, if you just want to send that to me and
Will do.
say that, unless they're substantive.
Janine's not with us today.
I can easily just send them to you. It's more when something is said that I said most residents said something.
Oh, okay.
I said so. I mean, it's not
Right.
like I've done a full poll of all residents. So,
Right.
but can I just send them to you then, Anne Marie?
Yeah, that would be great. And then just in the motion to approve, just note that you've sent some clerical corrections.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Santa was a big hit this weekend.
Was the traffic real bad on Saturday?
Well, there was quite a bit of traffic, but it
Okay.
wasn't bad.
Okay.
People were out in the streets doing things, you know.
Now, somebody emailed me and asked about the Lewis lights and said that it was really backed up getting into Lewis. And
You know, I went out and looked at the lights Saturday night, and there was a steady stream of traffic, particularly on Powhatan Road and Savannah, but I didn't see any backup. Now, maybe
Okay.
I didn't go outside the city.
right, it could have been coming in.
Yeah, but Santa was running all over the place in the Lewis Fire Department truck on Saturday night. I mean, they had him out for a full hour, running around the streets. They made 2 loops on the beach and throughout. You know, I was coming in 4th Street, and he had a whole entourage of vehicles with him. So you know, that could have created some. You know, good morning, Andrew.
Okay.
We better not tire Santa out. He's got a big day coming up,
Right.
you know. Like,
Yeah, we need to protect Santa. Hopefully he's protecting himself.
Yeah, we have a couple of Santas running around town.
yeah.
The downtown ambassadors are really having a fun time. Merck was out in the street on Saturday afternoon, you know, pulling people in to come have their picture taken with Santa. And yesterday, Robin was there. She had quite a costume on, and she did an interview with Channel 4 about Santa and the Santa house.
Channel 4 out of DC?
I don't know where it was from.
Okay.
I got there like 15, 20 minutes after they left. But they've really attracted a lot. They've taken a lot of pictures. You know, mom and dad and the kids standing in front of the door. And Santa got out of his chair to avoid the glare in his eyes, so he was standing in the doorway, which helped.
Emery, it looks like Matt might be in the attendee.
Oh,
list,
Yep, he sure is.
and I'm not sure. Yeah,
Yeah, let's get him elevated.
And Charlie.
And for sure, Charlie had elevated.
Thanks for finding that.
yeah, no worries.
Hello, Carolyn.
Hi.
You in your blue room there? No hotel. Are you in a hotel room again today?
No. No, I'm in Charm's office.
Okay. Good.
Hey guys, this is Matt. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I'm driving in my car, so I apologize for that, but I'm on.
Hands free, I assume, Matt.
Hands free, buddy.
We hope so.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I don't know. Maybe a coffee cup in one hand.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
Did anybody do the virtual tour of the Historic Society?
I did.
Yeah, I did too. I think it came off very well, actually. Yeah, I think it came off very well. And the market yesterday, I went, I didn't see, they didn't have 250 people there at a time. At least not, I was there just about noon, and there were plenty of people going in, but they were being very careful about getting people in and out of buildings, 2 at a time or 4 at a time if you were a group. So overall, it looked like it was being very well monitored. The weatherman certainly cooperated. They were smart to have moved it from Saturday morning, gosh.
Mhm.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah, but Saturday actually ended up being a nice day after the
Yeah.
rain went away. Not that I do much but sit in my house, but I can look out the window.
Yeah, well, we had enough rain here on Saturday that there was ponding everywhere.
Mhm.
Cedar Street was underwater out by California, where we normally have.
Where it always is, right?
It never went away. It was still there Saturday night.
Wow.
And Plantations Road, below Home Depot, all the way down to Old Postal Lane. There were big sections of that were, the drainage ditches were across the road.
Oh,
Dan
wow.
was out twice
It was
to
bad.
clear
It was bad.
the drain in front of our house
Yeah,
because the leaves cover it and then block it up,
Yep.
So
yeah. So there was a lot of, I think they said we had 2 inches of rain. So
Anne Marie, are you still playing the broken toes card?
I sure am.
Okay.
there's
what
Ross.
happened, Anne Marie?
Pardon me?
What happened?
I'm clumsy and I don't do well on steps, and I hit the bottom step of my deck wrong, and I was wearing slippers and broke 4 of my metatarsals.
Oh,
So I'm non-weight bearing for 6
Yeah.
weeks.
I broke 2 at one point, and that was bad enough. I cannot imagine 4.
I'm not in pain,
Mhm.
which is why I don't mind like baking sitting on a bar stool or whatever. It's just I can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And
So
it's
you-
my right foot, so I can't even if I could go somewhere, I can't drive. I mean, which the peak of COVID, not a bad time to be homebound.
Mhm.
So
So if you're baking sitting on a bar stool, what kind of alcoholic cookies are you making? Rum cakes and things like that.
I haven't done that, but I could try.
All right. Is the chief going to join us this morning? I thought he was, but
The chief is off this week. He is driving his son to Colorado.
oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Well, then I think everybody's here. So we should probably go ahead and get started. It is 8:35, and this is a meeting of the Downtown Business District Parking Committee. And the first item on the agenda, first of all, thank you all for coming. are attending today. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. I think Nancy had some editorial edits you wanted to make that were more not substantive, but more information. Is that correct, Nancy?
I had 2 minor edits that are being sent to Anne Marie, so.
Okay. So with that, with those corrections, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I so move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Great. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
So that was the October 2nd, and we need to do October 6th. So let's get to that as well, since they're separate on the agenda. Motion to approve those minutes?
Sorry, just so you know, I had an edit on each set of minutes. So
Okay,
I'm
great.
just going to say that again. And then
Terrific.
based on that, I move to approve.
Great. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay, great. Well, so that's great. Thank you very much, Nancy, for your edits. Moving then on to item C1 is discussion regarding the usage of the M&T lot for public parking. And I'm going to see if Jim O'Hare joined us. Looks like he did not. Okay. I have had some additional conversation with Patricia Dorr, who's the real estate manager for M&T. M&T is very interested in pursuing the 2-year lease that we've been talking about with the modification that Charlie shared with us during our last meetings. And they're willing to continue to fund the ceiling and the striping of the lot as they had originally agreed to, which is encouraging. Obviously, the same restrictions in terms of no metering on Sunday mornings to cover St. Peter's, and the St. Peter's Art Show for the first Saturday in July would all be applicable. So that's a positive step forward. And then I had a conversation with Jim Hare, and I thought he was going to join us this morning. He's the owner of the Hotel Rodney, and he's very pleased that we are considering not moving the dumpster pen. Obviously, that was going to be a major expense for him. He is very willing to accept the reduction to 4 parking spaces, and said he would participate in some way in the cost of making modifications. We talked about landscaping and things like that might need to be done, and he said that he would be willing to work with us on that. So I think that's, thanks Charlie for putting that up. I think that's very encouraging, and that would just refresh our members, refresh our minds, Charlie. That would result in us picking up how many spaces? For
Six spaces.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, 6 for during the regular business hours, but then we would also have use of all the M&T spaces to be metered up until 8 p.m. So that would help with the restaurant parking situation that we have. And then when the bank is not open, we would also have use of those additional parking spaces from the bank, which are 18, which would really help, I think, downtown. So it looks as though this is coming together rather well. Obviously, we'll have to have some modification of this, but in terms of putting it back, getting a bid and the modification of the agreement with M&T to move forward. But Patty Dorr did indicate that they were supportive of us going ahead. So rather encouraging. So I think we could, this is a recommendation that we could bring forward to City Council. I don't want to bring them piecemeal. I think we ought to take all the recommendations we come up with here at one time, and bring them to council for their consideration at one meeting. But this is one that I think over the last 2 years we've been working on, and it sounds like we finally have come up with a plan that is workable. Any comments?
I just want to confirm this is still on the 2-year, like a 2-year lease
Absolutely.
plan? Okay.
Mhm. That's the only way they would agree. Obviously, we've pushed and asked for a longer period, but they they view it as a trial period, and so they feel as though that they're most comfortable with 2 years. So
How do the meter machines, are they a leased piece of equipment, or is that something the city purchases and could, if it doesn't work out here, can you move that machine to another lot? Like how does
it could be moved. It is a purchase item, though.
the purchase item? Okay.
I have a question about the timing of the lease. Is it 2 years, meaning 2 parking seasons?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be 2 years. We have to put the actual dates into the lease, but the anticipation is 2 parking seasons. So, you know. So Charlie, I thank you for all your work on reconfiguring this lot. I know we had one plan and come up with another one, but not quite what we started off, but I think it will, at least gives us a trial here. So.
Sorry for the interruption. Is there any language in there regarding a renewal of the lease if it does work out well, or how's that handled?
At this point, nothing. Nick was not willing to consider any kind of I asked for an extension, and they have not been willing to do that. I think, they're waiting to see, how it works. But
Ted, two quick questions, if you don't mind. This is Matt.
sure.
The last time we all spoke, I know some of the business owners were not in favor of the Rodney having to put out money, really towards anything. I know it sounds like Jim has agreed to contribute in some way, but that's been reduced significantly for them, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Once we pulled the dumpster pen repositioning out, that pulled out more than half of the cost.
Okay. All right, good. And then my other question just is, at the end of the day, what's the overall cost for the city?
We don't know yet. We'll have to get Charlie. We haven't put it out to bid. Charlie, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, Matt, I kind of just went back through the bids that we've received from Teal and Jerry's last year, and took out a lot of the items that will no longer be necessary under this concept. And I came up with a range of 22 to 37,000. I know that's a big range, but really until I reach out to other contractors and get a new price, I can't tell you a firm estimate. But it's somewhere in that range, which is far less than where it was before. It was over $60,000 before, depending on some different alternatives. So I've been thinking about this, and Anne Marie and I talked last week about reaching out to JJID, who's doing the Phase 24 project. I might still do that, but now that the project has been optimized, so to speak, with just the seal coating and basically parking line striping, some flexible bollards as well, it's a relatively simple project. So I'm thinking about going to other contractors that maybe that sort of seal coating striping is more in their bailiwick than a big contractor like JJID. So I still need to work that out. Mayor, do you want me to start doing that, or do you want to wait until the lease is signed and all that?
I think we ought to start doing it, because M&T is going to want to have a pretty good idea of what their costs are. So I think we ought to go ahead and get some costs.
Okay.
So Patty was unable to attend today, but we spoke, or we didn't speak. We actually traded emails Friday, and she said that they were ready to move and they just needed a better idea of their costs. So I think we ought to go ahead and get some costs.
Okay. Well, we'll get started on that part, and hopefully I'll have some pricing. It may be after the first of the year, but
okay,
something like that.
Good.
Based on this, it looks like the cost to M&T might be around 30 to 40% of the overall cost. Is that fair to say? The seal cost of the
Probably.
seal?
Yeah, I might have missed the conversation earlier, but I'm not sure what the Hotel Rodney split is on this.
No, they said they would be willing to help with landscaping and some other costs, but
Okay.
obviously the biggest cost to them was the repositioning of the dumpster and the new pad for the dumpster pen and all that kind of stuff, which is what really drove the costs up. And the repair to the actual tarmac that needed to be made once we repositioned the dumpster. So.
Yeah.
If you'll recall, M&T, when we met with them, Charlie was concerned about those hollies and them remaining viable. And so I think this eliminates any risk to those hollies by not moving the dumpster pins.
Yes.
So, but
Do we know, has there, and I missed the last meeting, so this may have been discussed. I know we've done a little bit of forecasting based on how many spots are going to be available and usage, and I realize that that's difficult to do as well. But let's hypothetically, if this only lasts 2 years, can we forecast based on an estimate of usage if the usage will cover the investment or come close, or, you know, make it a wash? Or is there a profit? Any of that? Has any of that been done?
I think that what we came up with is a very rough estimate based on 50% occupancy, and it would cover the cost that the city would have to bear.
Okay.
And 50% occupancy, I don't think you were on, since you weren't on the last meeting, you probably hadn't, maybe saw it in the minutes. It turned out that the 3rd Street lot has a 54% occupancy now. So with this lot even being more visible, you know, I think that we could expect that 50% or greater might be, you know, might be a reasonable number to work with.
And that occupancy is based on like a full calendar year?
Yes. But
Okay.
remember, we only meter from like 170 days.
Correct.
So yeah, I think in terms of the revenue, the thing that where we're going to realize our biggest potential is on Saturday and Sunday, because the bank currently is not open on Saturday and Sunday. And then during Monday through Friday, our potential for revenue, largest potential for revenue is after the bank closes until 8 o'clock, when we can utilize all their spaces as metered spaces.
So this is just a totally random thought, that has the city ever considered keeping meters on in certain areas as opposed to turning them all off citywide?
But it has not. It has been recommended by a couple of merchants downtown that we consider going to all meters being on year round.
Okay. But is it can be, the way the meters are set up, you can turn some off and keep some on, correct?
That's true. We'd have to modify the way the code in order to do that, but yes.
I'm not, I don't know if I'm not suggesting that, but I just wanted to know if that was an option.
Okay. Yeah. Well, just as we did this summer when we modified the meters so they didn't come on until noon, you know, we can do that with the new meter system we have. We're much more flexible. Anne-Marie, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so we can make any changes. They're zoned, so you can make it by zone. It's very easy to do. If we were to extend parking meters year round in any area, we would need to also expand the staffing to go with that. So it's certainly doable, but we would need to amend the code and then also address the staffing side of it to enforce it.
Correct. So anyway, I think it's a step in the right direction. We'll try to get this lease ironed out with M&T in the meantime. And Charlie, if you could get us some estimates, I think we're moving in the right direction.
Okay.
So any other questions about that?
I don't have a question, but just a comment. Since we have only a 2-year trial period, rather than maybe wait for something to go wrong and then for them to reach out to us, is there something we can do to be more, maybe you're already doing it, Ted, by the way, proactive, where we, set up a reminder to check in on that relationship?
Yeah, I think that can be done.
Yeah.
Patty and her, the woman who is the designer of the space for M&T, Amy McShane, have been pretty good about touching base. So I think we will undoubtedly do this on a regular basis going forward. Clearly, what's going to need to be done in order to make sure that people understand this space is the signage is going to have to be worked out very carefully, so that we don't confuse people with what the signage, when the meters have to be paid, when the M&T meters can be used by the general public. So the signage is going to be really important here.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is if there's any help that the business owners can provide in terms of communication with customers, I think that might be something obviously we could do if we could get some communication to the chamber. I for one would help with that communication.
Okay, great. If we can get this put together, I think Betsy can include it. But Betsy, when are you printing your maps that would show parking?
Not until May.
So we have time to get information to Betsy to make sure that she could indicate in that pamphlet that goes out that when the meters are available there. So,
Great.
okay.
We also have the ambassadors that are more than willing. I'm sure they're going to continue to help us out, and that could be another function that they can have as they're strolling through the historic district.
Yep. That's turned out to be a really good volunteer program. That's wonderful. So,
Ted, can you send us the sheet that Charles has of the estimates? I know it's not written in stone right now, but could, can we get copies of that?
sure. Just remember that that's based on the previous. You see all the line through items, those things would come
Right.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just my first, shot at it based on what we had before, but yeah. And it's a total project cost. It includes, fees for administering the project during construction with the contractor.
Yeah. But you can see where basically like the seal coating and the restriping, those items, would be items that would be borne by M&T. And as Charlie says, if we can get, based on the fact we're not making a lot of significant changes to this lot, we may be able to find somebody who's in the seal coat and striping business to do a lot of this work, which would be less expensive than trying to mobilize a major construction company that's going to rebuild streets. These are smaller companies, they have less overhead, and the costs may actually come down. So I wouldn't, obviously when Charlie comes back to us with some more information, we can, react more to the actual numbers. So.
And if we do move forward with M&T, in regards to the agreement, is that something that Glenn or somebody would look over? Because, I know that the renewal, while they're unwilling to go longer, it would be useful to put in some kind of trigger language, like 6 months before the end, where we could start discussions about renewal, or have some language in there around expectations or milestones that, to Derek's point, that way we know we're on the right track to what they expect and what we expect.
I think we can work on that. They've been unwilling to put in any language up until now that would talk about beyond 2 years, but we could certainly talk prospectively about us having, setting a date, say by, the end of the meter season in that would be end of the meter season in 22. We would sit down and talk about going forward. That's a reasonable idea, Andrew. I think that's a good idea, actually, to set something anticipatory in the plan. or in the agreement. So, any other comments or questions about the M&T lot? Okay, then let's move on to item C2, which is delineation of parking spaces in the areas adjacent to the business district. Charlie, you've done some work on this, and I think you've turned up some interesting numbers for us. Go ahead.
Yes. So what we were charged to do is sort of delineate spaces that could be actually marked out on West 3rd Street from Ship Carpenter to Queen Anne, and then also Park Avenue from 3rd Street to 4th Street. So we've done that. I mean, these are concept plans. They might, at the end of the day, when we actually do this, if we actually do this, they might vary by one or two, one way or the other. But generally on 3rd Street between Ship Carpenter and Queen Anne, we can delineate 62 spaces. I mean, it's a long stretch of road, so, and you can see them here. They're all parallel parking spaces that can be delineated on both sides. And there's 62 there, and then on Park Avenue between 3rd and 4th, we can delineate 42 spaces. There's a few spaces that are delineated up at this end by 3rd Street now, but not very many at all. So, you know, by delineating spaces, you can create 104 actual spaces on those two streets.
Charlie, on 3rd Street between Ship Carpenter and Queen Anne, when you're driving down 3rd Street, before you come to Ship Carpenter, there's only parking on one side of the street. And then once you cross Ship Carpenter, there's parking on both sides. Is the street wide enough to support having the two-side parking?
Yeah, it's a little tight. I will say that. I was going to zoom in here. Look at that. It's 13 feet wide, so it's pretty tight through there. So we'd have to look at that pretty carefully.
I tend to agree with Nancy. It's kind of tight on that side. And then the other issue that I think you'll get is, you know, obviously they're public spots, but at least on the one side of the street, you're kind of in you're not right in front of people's homes, whereas further down the street, I think those spots on the other side are kind of more, yeah, down there, kind of right in front of people's houses.
Now, that said, parking is allowed on both sides of the
Sure.
street right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, it is currently.
Yeah.
Yesterday was a good illustration
Which is sort of the
that.
approach we took, but yeah.
Yesterday, during their market, there was parking on both sides of the street. Charlie, isn't 3rd Street from Ship Carpenter out a little wider than from Ship Carpenter towards Mulberry in terms of pavement width?
I thought it was I was just eyeballing it, but I couldn't
Yeah.
really tell how wide.
Are you-
I
Are you talking?
No, I'm talking about
talking-
3rd Street, just 3rd Street. You don't. It's not on your drawing.
Oh,
Pull back to the 3rd Street lot or 3rd Street, and then go down. It just looks to me as though that perhaps once you cross the intersection of Ship Carpenter, that pavement is a little narrower than
Yeah, I think it is.
where your cursor is now. Than it
Yeah.
is once you cross over and you go onto in front of Ship Carpenter Square. I don't know that, but I've never measured it, but it's worth looking at.
I'm a little
Yes.
surprised that the other streets show a 15-foot. If I'm reading, I'm squinting through my glasses, Charlie, so you may be able to see more clearly what that number is. Show a 15-foot distance between the parking on each side, but it narrows down to 13, does it, over?
yeah, it's 31 feet wider on 3rd Street. Sherry, my designer, just let me know. 31 feet here on West 3rd Street between Ship Carpenter and Queen Anne. It's only 25 feet, Ted, on 3rd Street as you move back towards town. So you guys are right. It's a little.
So it's 6 feet narrower. Okay.
Yeah. And
Okay,
then,
so-
yeah, it's 33 feet wide on Park Avenue, Nancy.
I see.
Well, the other thing is on Ship Carpenter, on 3rd Street between, along Ship Carpenter Square, you have no curb and gutter
Mhm.
on either side of the street. So anyway, but those are significant amounts of increases, even if you cut it, even if you cut 3rd Street down to only parking on one side, you still have roughly 30 spaces that you could realize there.
Just confirm it, that these would still be deemed free spaces, correct?
Absolutely, yep.
Yeah.
You'd just be delineating spaces, Andrew.
I think part of the point of delineating the spaces is on the other part of 3rd Street, that side of the street that is next to the historic properties there, parking is not allowed. So I think a lot of people driving down the street think when they cross Ship Carpenter, that's still true. And when you put the parking lines in, it kind of sends a signal to people, you're allowed to park here,
Exactly. Well, also yesterday I walked 3rd Street as I came out of the historic complex, and people had parked with 6 to 8 feet between them and the vehicle that they pulled up behind, or the vehicle that parked behind them. So you just kept eliminating spaces by virtue of the way people distance their vehicles from the next vehicle. So delineating spaces would tighten that up.
Yeah, the
Charlie?
challenge is that we probably have a large chunk of the population that doesn't know how to parallel park.
Charlie can do it. You should. Charlie?
Hello?
Yeah, Jeff.
The vacant lot that's behind Historic Square,
Yes.
is there a requirement here for an apron? Is that for a driveway at some point, or is that something we don't have to consider in putting those parking spaces in?
At
No,
this
that's a
point,
good point. Yeah.
but at this point, that's actually a double lot.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. So at this point, we wouldn't have to do it, but at some point in the future, if it were sold and developed, then obviously it would have to have, aprons. The one thing we might want to consider, knowing that, and that you raise a good point, because the Historic Society does use that for vendor parking when they have their craft fairs and things like that. So we might want to make sure that there isn't, that we didn't create a gap there for entrance.
We left the spot right here, but, we'd have to confirm that when we actually do the work.
Or you could move it to the other end,
Yeah.
down where that 9 is.
Yeah. Down here. Yep. Definitely.
Anne Marie, do we have the capability of doing just striping like this in-house?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, that was one thing I was going to say, is that we did something similar to this over by the Zwannendale Museum, although those spaces are metered, but we actually delineated those spaces just last year. I think that worked out pretty good in terms of, optimizing the number of people who park there.
Well, Betsy had a bird's eye view on it. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Charlie, you're absolutely right. It did help, because we had that same issue with people, leaving too much space and losing parking spaces. So yeah, the delineation, and the city streets department did a great job.
I think though we have received comments from neighbors that metering those spaces by Zwannendale has pushed more worker parking up Savannah in terms of as soon as you stop, wherever the metering stops, that space becomes a very desirable space because it's the closest one walking distance to town that's free.
I've gotten the same feedback, Nancy.
Yeah.
You mean on Kings Highway?
Yeah.
But there was a lot of concern prior to it. I haven't had much feedback since we did that on that. But
I think we metered both on Kings Highway and on Savannah, didn't we?
No.
On both sides of the museum? No, it was
No.
just, okay, then it was on Kings Highway they were talking about.
Have you heard that feedback after the fact? Because as the mayor said, we heard it leading up to the metering, but we haven't. You've heard it since?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
I heard it last.
We're monitoring, and like I heard it multiple times. Okay. After the fact.
Okay. Well, we're not talking about metering any of the space on 3rd or on Park Avenue. So this would just be delineation of space. It wouldn't impact anybody's ability to park.
This is actually, I think, very desirable parking for people who are visiting town, because you can, cut through the historic properties on your walk,
Right.
and then just walk down 2nd Street, and, you're not going to get lost. You're not going to.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Nancy. It is very desirable. And but I can tell you the key to the success of this, certainly word of mouth will get it out, but is signage.
Mm-hmm.
We need to tell people that there's, parking down 3rd Street if we were to go ahead with this. Because right now, as Father Ross said at our last meeting, these spaces, when there isn't an event at the Historic Society, largely go vacant.
Yeah.
And so, I think the signage issue will be important. So.
Mayor, I happen to notice that Mr. O'Hare is on now. I don't know
great.
if,
Okay.
do you want me to
Yeah,
make him a panelist? Did you want to go back to that agenda item?
we can, sure. Thank you, Anne-Marie. I didn't see that.
All right, Mr. O'Hare, we've made you a panelist. We had already talked about the M&T lot, but I don't know if there's any additional discussion.
No, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. I had a chance to talk to the mayor. I guess it was late last week, and we're very happy with the current plan.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate the efforts too, really, to keep the costs down with regard to our trash enclosure as well. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. We're talking about right now where we are. We're talking about the 3rd Street, and you and I briefly spoke about that when we talked on Friday, about the possibility of delineating spaces on 3rd and on Park Avenue as it moves from 3rd down to, or it moves from 4th to 3rd, and how that would impact more parking being available or being defined, and therefore hopefully encourage people to park there without having meters.
Mayor, is this something that needs to go to the council before you actually do it?
I think if we're going to delineate it, I think we probably should at least take it to council, and inform them that this is something we're recommending. Yes. Anne-Marie, you want to comment on that?
I agree.
Okay.
So I'm thinking maybe allow Sherry and I just to, after the discussion today, to give it a little bit, maybe one more look, and identify maybe some spots that we will or will not keep, and just give it one final look before we take it to council, I guess. Or I mean, it's the committee's decision to do that, but I'd like to take a little bit more look based on our discussion today.
Okay. So maybe we could come back to that when we meet the next time and make a recommendation to take.
Yeah, I think so. I think we've got some time, because we can paint the lines. It won't take very long to do that in early spring or something.
Right, and that's something, as was said earlier, we can do that in-house. So it's not a matter of getting bids and all that to go forward with this program. So,
Mayor, you'd mentioned, and I agree that we don't want to go about this piecemeal. Once we come with all the recommendations, will we as a committee then vote
yes.
on those? Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay. And then if there's no further discussion on these two, I think we could move ahead then to the utilization of Schley Avenue, Little League, and the Beebe Hospital parking, during the peak periods. So Charlie, you had looked at both reconfiguring the Schley Avenue and over by the Daily Market. Let's go to those two if we could, okay?
Yeah. So the Schley Avenue, it really was more, I think, almost an aesthetic thing to get the parking out on parallel to Franklin Avenue and eliminate what's being used as a staging area for construction down in this corner and kind of push that all back behind the parking lot if this area is going to be used for staging at all, so that people who are living on Franklin Avenue don't have the view of a staging area all the time.
Right.
So basically what we did was just pretty much take the existing parking lot and turn it 90 degrees to be set up like this. There were some other needs that the committee identified last time we met, which was to create a bike parking area for bikes coming off the trail now. So we were able to do that, 26 bikes, similar to what we have over by at the Savannah Road, Gills Neck Road, that bike parking area. Basically just one line of those parking hoops for the bikes down in here. The charging station for electric vehicles is right here now. So we have that moved over to here. We did create one ADA spot. I think one thing that popped up while we were developing this concept is if we create an ADA space, which I think probably everybody's in agreement that we should do that. It's one thing to create the space, but you actually have to provide access to a sidewalk. So, we'd have to do something to get people from this ADA space to this corner and across to Franklin Avenue. So just keep that in mind as we talk about it. And, the other thing is we didn't really go into a whole lot of detail, but we were thinking that, there'd be landscaping on this side. It really didn't improve or increase, not improve, but increase the number of spaces. I think it's still 27 spaces in here. But it does add the bike parking. It does still include the car charging. It's got an ADA space. And it sort of satisfies the whole thing of disguising the staging areas for construction if we were to use those areas behind the parking lot.
Right. Well, I think the big thing that we heard at the last meeting was the need for bike parking there. And this plan does enable that. And also, as we've heard, Anne-Marie and I particularly have heard from the people who have the homes that are on Franklin, that they would like to have all of that ingress, egress cut off. And I think putting it over on Schley is helpful.
I guess I have a question around, given how far the ADA, is it a requirement to have an ADA space? The only reason I ask is because it seems kind of far still for someone downtown if they are disabled, but at the same time, maybe we intend that they could use the trail from there, and there's thus the need to have the ADA parking spot there. Is that the idea?
Well, I think, I put it in there because when we do a parking lot, we usually put the number of ADA spaces that are required by the number of overall spaces. So, I don't know that you're absolutely required, but we typically do that.
I think it is required. I think that we would be at risk. I agree. It's not like a building where there's something nearby, but you could have somebody, like you said, Mr. Williams, that just wants to use the trail, or if you have a scooter or a motorized wheelchair, it would be a place to park where you could, go other places. So
I think I mean, since we've got two former occupational therapists on this panel, I have to speak up for the young disabled and also for people in electrified vehicles. They really need the space next to a spot to get out and to get into, their mode of ambulation, I guess.
Right.
And this gives them access to the trail and access to downtown. So,
Right.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think we lose one space by doing it, but.
Right. I agree, Nancy. And the other thing is that on Franklin Avenue, there is sidewalk directly across Schley. So once they make that crossing of Schley Avenue, there is sidewalk on both sides of the street. And this is, as I have mentioned this to both Representative Smick and Senator Lopez, and this is a project they are interested in, and improving access to connectivity with the sidewalks for walking or any kind of ADA compliance would probably be attractive to them as well as they think about it.
I know that we're not currently discussing valet parking, but in the past, this lot has been one lot that was discussed as a potential valet parking lot. If that ever were to happen, does this design make it easier, more difficult, or about the same? No difference. I mean, if it needed to be, 2 feet wider to make it easier to stack a ton of cars in, we probably would want to do that now. But if it doesn't make any difference, fine.
Yeah, I don't think that I really don't think it makes much difference because we've got a 24-foot wide aisle here, which is, what you need for head-in parking like this. So unless there's something that those valet parking firms do that I'm not aware of, I think this would work for them. Maybe we need to reach out to them, or I can do a little research on it or something.
I mean, I think the only thing they do is they stack them in, and it's like one of those video games where you have to shift the blocks around to get
Tetris.
one out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Charlie, the one thing you might want to think about is, and maybe it's already in here and it's just not visible, at the end, at the trail end of the lot, creating a pedestrian exit. I would assume right now, the way this is drawn, people would exit through the bike parking area if they want to go just to the, want to consider, some kind of an exit, to get to the trail.
Yeah, we just had the bikes coming in off of Franklin Avenue in this way. I guess that it's a little bit complicated if we're talking about getting people who utilize the ADA space to the trail. Because right now I was just thinking about this as being stone the way it is now.
Correct.
But that's really not an accessible surface for ADA.
But that's why I think having it positioned there would make it easier if you did want to have a paved pad just at that space going to a sidewalk, you'd have it.
Yeah, definitely. That's what this is, paved right here. And then we don't show anything, Nancy, but we were, that's what this in general note is that we sort of create, some sort of access sidewalk, walkway to this point, and then this would all need to be improved across this street to make these ADA ramps to access the Franklin Avenue sidewalks, and a crosswalk right here. But
What's
to
the
be able to get, go ahead, Nancy.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's okay, go ahead.
What's the access from Franklin Avenue to the trail? I walk that trail, but I can't remember each street. Some of them you kind of are going down a fairly steep incline to.
This one's at grade. You go right onto the trail.
Yeah, it's right on the trail.
Okay.
But there's no sidewalk here.
Right.
Right.
I can't recall, we discussed last time, is there adequate lighting down there already, or
You brought up the lighting, which is a good point, Andrew. We would probably want to think about some lighting there. Not much, but.
Yeah, not much.
Yeah. I figured we'd coordinate with the Board of Public Works on that part of it, Andrew.
It may be that we could light on the backside, not on the Franklin side, but on the internal side of the lot. Yeah, Charlie, along there with just a couple of lights, which would keep it as far away from the residents as possible. Okay. Any other comments on this space?
I may want to ask if Derek and maybe Matt would comment on whether, if this was, brought up a bit more aesthetically and there was some adequate lighting down there, do you envision more use from the business district employees potentially using this lot? I know it doesn't get heavily used now, but.
Thank you for that question, because it was something on my mind. I was about to say something. One of the worries I have is that we make an investment in this improvement. I think we all do. It comes up all the time, but then we don't get any usage out of it, right? So I was just thinking in my head, is there anything we can do to incentivize people to use it, whether it's employees or others? And this isn't, I'm just throwing out an example, believe me, it would have to be thought through, but where almost like a coffee, you go to the coffee shop, you get a punch card. When you have 10 coffees, you get one free. Is there a way to, how do we create incentive for people to use it? I'm going to be honest with you. I worry about, again, making that investment and not being used. I feel like this group needs to talk about topically, separately, how do we get consumer behavior to go where we want them to go? And that's throughout the whole city, not just this lot, is how do we change consumer behavior? And, I mean, customers, employees, everybody that's a consumer of parking. I know that didn't answer you, Andrew, but.
No, it's in the right track. And I mean, I think the one thing that came up this meeting was from Donna talking about the fact that that's why we brought in the bike element, because some bike folks are parking on Franklin, which is again public parking, but the thought process is we could move the biker parking potentially to this lot, then that frees up downtown people who want to go downtown maybe to park on Franklin, which is then closer. That was one of the thoughts around this idea.
Yep.
Well, I think part of this is, we're going to get to another topic on this agenda called Merje. And I think, part of it's signage. You're absolutely right. Changing any kind of behavior is difficult, Derica. But I think part of it is the little sign that's on Kings Highway that says additional parking and has an arrow. You're almost on top of it before you see it. And so even if you're inclined to use it, you don't know about it.
Yeah, because that's what I said last time. I never knew it existed. So I think that's what we have to do. We have to make people
And
aware.
the condition of it wasn't very inviting.
Correct. It's not an attractive lot.
I was going to say the same thing. I think a lot of people look at it and especially next to the construction laydown area, they probably think it's construction parking or, like kind of more of a industrial type parking. So I think that landscaping it and making it more attractive is going to be an important part of getting it used.
Okay, I agree.
I think I totally agree with you guys. There's people that don't know that lot exists. But what I hear consistently from customers, right or wrong, by the way, I'm just reporting what I'm hearing, is people want to park right in front of the stores and restaurants. And then, so that gets me back to, how do you change overall behavior? How do you incentivize the person that's willing to walk? I think it's a quarter of a mile, roughly, I think, if I recall. And you know what I mean? Like, I feel like we need a discussion about
I mean, there's one
the
way.
overall pricing of parking. And do you charge a premium for
I was gonna say
parking
that.
where you want to be, and almost think of it as products? Like, I'm going to charge a premium for the product in front of the stores. And maybe we even, back to the coffee punch card, what I'm saying is there's a raffle once a month for anybody that hits has parked in the Schley lot 10 times, they win $1,000. I know that sounds, I mean, I'm not saying that is the plan. I'm saying that's the type of thing where I think without those things, my worry is we're not going to change behavior. I guess that's my worry.
I think the way you change behavior, I mean, I think it really takes a multi-pronged approach. And, you know, whether it's raising parking where it's the most desirable, so people don't spend the full day there and keep going back and feeding the meter. Or a lot of cities have looked at ways to make it more fun. And, you know, doing some fairly simple things like having a sign in the bike parking so that when you're coming along the trail, you can see that if you park there, it's just a, you know, so many foot walk to downtown Lewis. Might actually bring more people in to stop and park their bike there and you know, make the walk. We talked before about having something at the Chamber of Commerce that would be, you know, a history walk that originated there. You know, if we could get the Lewis Historical Society to have some of their tours start there, so people would park there. I mean, once you get people to a couple times, you know where it is, and you go back. You know, it's finding it the first time that's the really hard part, and you realize how, you know, if you make it interesting on the walk between there and the city, you know, and 2nd Street, it doesn't seem as far, you know.
I guess that's exactly what I'm saying is I think we should make this a topic in and of itself.
We can do that. I mean, the psychological changing of people's mindset is very, very hard. You know, we live in a world of what I will call a shopping center mentality. You know, and people don't want, you know, you look at what goes on and it's very hard to change that.
Well, in addition to that, and this is, I've been thinking about this and we've talked about it for a long time, but we're all on this committee in Lewis and we all know where to park in Lewis. We all know about the Schley lot, not that we use it that much, but we know it's there. When I go to Easton, I'm a consumer when I go to Easton and I react the exact same. I'll be the first one to admit it. When I go there, my approach to finding a park, and I'm just using Easton as an example, my approach to finding a parking spot is probably the exact same way as 9 out of the 10 people who come to Lewis, which is exactly what we're talking about. And how do we, I couldn't agree with you more, Derica. This idea, this psychological thing has got to be addressed almost by itself, because it's the challenge with every lot in Lewis and every striped spot. And if you don't live here and kind of know about it, and to Nancy's point, if you can get them to figure it out twice, then you're good. Mm-hmm. But how do you get the public, like me, if I were to go to Easton, what are they doing over there, or St. Michael's or wherever, to get me to realize where their Schley lot is so that I can come back and use it on it? That's the biggest challenge. And it's really difficult.
But Matt, I when I first joined this committee and found out about Schley, I never knew there was a lot there. And I emailed a lot of my friends. I said, did anybody know? Most of them didn't know about it.
Right.
So I mean, here we are talking about some Lewis people that didn't know about it. So,
right.
So
exactly.
Somehow or other we have to get the information out there. And I don't know. Maybe once we get
the merge thing will have some impact on this if we go forward with that. But you know, I think until then, you're not going to change this overnight. In Derek's idea of perhaps, you know, incentivizing people through, you know, some kind of a point system is a possibility, but, you know, I
That's a
mean,
good idea. And the Schley lot seems like the one that does have a chance. You know, it seems like it's close enough. It's nice that it's on the bike. Maybe we use the bike trail as the marketing of it to try to get it acknowledged and to get people to start using it. Because there's probably more bikers that are passing through there and seeing it, or possibly using the area to go biking. And maybe we can work that angle to try to get it out, into the public's minds.
I think Merje makes a great, her idea around just putting a simple sign that says, quarter mile, whatever it is, or X number of steps to shopping and eating is a great idea.
Well, and I think, to Matt's point, there are a lot of people who may ride their bike on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning on the trail, and maybe later in the day they're coming down to shop and to eat. If there's something where you're on the trail and you realize that this is a lot that is near downtown and free, then you're more likely to come back and use it when you're not on your bike.
yeah. Well, I think the same issue here is going to apply to the 3rd Street. If we go down by the Strip Carpenter Square, we're going to have to educate people where they are and encourage them to use it. I really do.
And this is a little off topic, but Betsy had mentioned the ambassadors, but I know I saw Chip Davis on here, and he's part of our biking group, and they're talking about a biking ambassadors program. So I think it would be good at some point potentially to coordinate the two ideas, where you can, because the same ideas, to make people aware of what's going on in Lewis and where things are and how to do things properly, et cetera. So I just want to mention that there's a bike ambassadors program in the talks as well.
Okay. Good.
We could also, with my businesses, there's an opportunity there to possibly have a little flyer that we staple to everybody's check receipt that has a small map on it or something with the highlighted, and it could just say free parking at, in the Schley lot, just to, that's one way to get something into people's hands that start to give them the knowledge.
Yeah, we could also get the chamber to help us with that. Betsy could, with her brochure that she's saying she's putting out in May, she could mark where free lots are versus metered lots, or free area parking is versus metered parking.
Mayor, another idea I have is, the people that are going to be utilizing this lot, a lot of them are visitors, and there are visitors that do a little advance work when they're going to a place. Not always, but some do. Right. We could create a little video where walking around, showing where the lots are with a map, and have it on the chamber's website, have it on the city's website. That would get some people, and then piggybacking on Matt's idea of, once they're here already, informing them about where the free parking is.
Sure.
Along with the physical improvements, though, I wonder if a rebranding of the lot might also help, because calling it the Schley lot, that doesn't mean anything to anybody unless they live in Lewis.
Great
Maybe
idea,
making it the gateway lot or the new parking lot or something to kind of anchor it and publicize it so that people pay attention to it. If it looks more physical attractive, I think that's one piece of it. I think the psychology is another piece of it, but also the way we brand it and publicize it, I think, is an important piece of it.
That's
Good
a great
idea.
Excellent point, because nobody knows where Schley Avenue is, I can assure you. They're a lot more likely to find Franklin before they find Schley. So your point's very well made, Jeff. Thank you.
The other thing I want to say is, we have all of these parking opportunities within Lewis. Ones we're investing in, like Schley, like the restriping of 3rd Street, etc. I feel like I could use a map, a consumer map that said, from this group, that says, who is the person we most want to park, let's say, at Schley? Is it an employee? is it a customer? I mean, I think it's employees, but I don't want to, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. And then from there say, okay, let's say it is employees. How are we going to market to those employees and change their behavior? Because that would be helpful as a sort of a psychological map.
One
Anyway.
of the things that we might consider is, I know on college campuses, the college I went to, they give these kind of free beach cruiser bikes, and maybe you could just have them there, and then the folks could take them to their job and then take the beach cruiser bike after the shift, kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I think there's a lot of opportunity to move forward with, you know, how we try to re-educate people or inform people of all levels, whether they're employees or customers, locals or visitors from out of the area. And these are all good ideas bouncing around here. But the concept of this lot, I think, helps in terms of makes it more attractive. Renaming it or rebranding it would be helpful. I think the map idea and Betsy's idea of a video is an excellent one, I think. So, but perhaps we should look at the other opportunity that that Charlie has taken a look at also, and that's looking over at the daily market. And that's kind of an interesting scenario you might find the Smith Avenue lot. As you know, yeah, go ahead.
Maybe just to wrap up the Schley in terms of where I am on it in the design, I feel like I'm on a holding pattern until we work some of these other things out with regard to the Schley lot. Is that fair to say, Mayor? Do you think?
I think what you need to do is go ahead and put the ADA ramp in, because that would definitely be something we'd want to do. The ADA connection and the crosswalk into this.
Yeah, the one thing I was a little concerned with, maybe I didn't say it clearly, is just getting, if we want ADA parking space users to have access to the trail, do you want me to show that access as well? Because that would be, you know, just first blush.
No, let's just show it going to Franklin right now.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Yeah, so coming out of the last meeting, we talked about optimizing spacing on the Smith Avenue area over by the Daily Market on the other side of the bridge. So we looked at 3 different ways we could arrange the parking spaces. One would be, by the way, actually right now, people kind of park head in right here facing the Beacon Hotel structure. But, you know, it's really kind of hit or miss, and there's not too many, they're definitely not delineated spaces. But so we were talking about utilizing that space and having cars come in and maybe wheel back around this way. So we did it 3 different ways. We did it with 30-degree spaces like this, which generated, let's see, 15 spaces there, where vehicles would come in, they could park, pull out, and go back around this way to get out. And then we looked at a different concept, which created 45-degree spaces, which if you're going with angled spaces, this would be the way to go because it generates 21 spaces. But it's the same idea. You come in, you park, you pull out, you go around this way. But they're actually
it still leaves you a 16-foot exit lane, which is plenty wide.
Yeah, and just as we look through these, just keep in mind, we haven't communicated with the state fire marshal in exactly what the fire lane is for the Daily Market Strip Shopping Center. Typically, a fire lane is 24 feet wide, so we would need to talk to the fire marshal about what it is right now and what's required. So just keep that in mind. So this was another option we looked at. And then finally, we looked at this one up, just head-in parking, which you would pull in, head-in, park either side, and then go back out the same way you came in. There wouldn't be that whole turnaround. This gets tight because the aisle has to be so wide for head-in parking for people to back in and back out and get out of the parking lot. It gets tight over here by the Daily Market structure with only 12 feet between the edge of the parking lot and the structure itself. So
I think that's where their deliveries tend to pull up there
Yeah.
and offload.
The
Yeah.
deliveries were our first thought, Andrew, not so much the fire marshal, but both are going to be an issue, I think, with this arrangement.
I think the third option really, we can't go forward looking at that seriously. It's just too tight. I think you and I spoke or traded emails on that, Charlie. But
Yeah.
Charlie, would this be an impervious, I'm sorry, a pervious surface like clamshells or rocks that you're envisioning, or?
Yeah, that's what I mean, just to keep the cost down, that's what I was talking about, some kind of stone, clamshell, whatever we decide, chip stone like down at Canal Front Park.
So that's what's there now. The pavement stops with the building, and
Yeah, it's sort of rough, I think. I pulled it up.
So when you have a situation like that, how do you delineate parking with the wooden bollard or something like that? If it's
Yeah, definitely. That's sort of what it looks like now.
Okay.
But
How would the deliveries, how would you prevent the deliveries from using that 16-foot exit way? Or would you? Would that be two-way?
yeah, I think you can make it two-way. It's pretty tight, but for the occasional deliveries, I think we could utilize that. That's a good point, though, Jeff. I have to confirm that.
Otherwise,
deliveries.
you have to go down the parking lot and around and to the back and out, I guess. Is that?
They could do that too. Yeah. You could
What,
even
on the other side?
You could go in through the entrance to the parking lot and come around and go that way.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, like this. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could, but would they? I guess is my question.
Over time, it's just a matter of, it's not just, it's a matter of educating the delivery people.
Yeah, and a sign or two,
Yeah.
just directing them this way.
Yeah. Currently, we also have a porta potty at the back of that parking lot.
Okay.
Which is noteworthy. But I think maybe getting more information from the fire marshal on what would be acceptable would dictate what we could do here. But I think there is potential to realize more spaces there.
I can't recall what was the inventory now, like as it's currently used now. Is it around 10 spots or?
It's undefined, Andrew. We have two
doesn't-
charging stations there, but other than that, there's no definition.
And would this be metered or unmetered?
Unmetered.
This is what I typically see when I go through there, Andrew, is just kind of Wild West parking in there like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can talk to the fire marshal and then, maybe revisit it at the next meeting.
Okay. That's useful information, though. I mean, that does look like it could generate significantly more space. Like maybe.
Yeah, we're talking about, 21 spaces there.
Yeah.
The other thought I had, Mayor, was on this concept was to eliminate, I think it was 8 spaces.
Right.
Like maybe back to here.
Okay.
So that, you would still have the access, and the fire lane, but you would lose 8 spaces. But in this concept, you're getting 28. So, you'd be gaining 20 spaces delineated.
No,
Are you able to pull the screen down to see like the other end where Lemon Tree is? Or you don't have that image? I was wondering, is there a space on the other side of the building to get around back that way rather than? Oh, okay.
The building comes right up to the restaurant.
Okay.
Harvest Tide's property line.
Does, yeah.
For my other thought, just looking at this and in addition to the Schley lot, is just thinking about employees. Like if this would be a good employee lot.
Absolutely.
It might even be closer footsteps wise, or you know, psychologically an easier walk for employees because it's not really residential, and, you know, a nice walk to go across the bridge, and probably feel safer maybe as well. Because I just wanted to add, you know, daytime employees for me, I think the Schley lot could work, but we've talked about this before. You know, we have a lot of nighttime employees, and walking, that's the challenge, I think, is getting employees from work to the parking lot late at night. But this might be more favorable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very well lit because you've got the Beacon Motels lot that's lit. You've got the Daily Market lot that's lit. I get your point, Matt. That's a good idea. And Charlie, your point about maybe pulling back those spaces and leaving that all perpendicular parking is good. Okay. All right. Derek is leaving us, I see. But I do want to, so is there any other comment about this, Charlie? I think if you get some more fire marshal information, that'll help us go forward on this one.
Okay. Okay.
I did have a conversation with Rick Schaffner of Beebe again, and Beebe is still very supportive of our allowing people to utilize or encouraging people to utilize the Beebe lots when they are not during normal working hours, Monday through Friday, but on evenings and weekends. And so they're still very receptive. You know, they said that the gravel lot down behind at the end of Market Street is most of the time 100% vacant and on weekends. So in addition to that, the lot down there by the former nursing home also tends to be underutilized off normal Monday through Friday operations at the hospital. So good potential there. But all of this, and I don't know, Andrew, did you make contact with?
I did. I was able to speak with Rob, and so he obviously has some moving parts on his side because it's multiple Ortons that are, you know, involved in the property. But one thing that he and I talked about was maybe the three of us, you, me, and him, or someone else from the committee, going down to the property and walking it and seeing, because it's actually the middle part that he. So like you said, it's the tennis courts, the city. Then it's the baseball fields that are Orton. And then he said their property, he thinks, ends around first baseline.
Right, it does.
This way. So he's open to walking the property. The other thing, you know, that I wasn't clear with, or he was, are we looking for a situation where it would be a valet situation where cars, or are we talking about having someone and charging for spots or delineating spots, et cetera? And the other thing he brought up was something that Nancy brought up last time, is right now, it tends to be the Wild Wild West. And so he's open for discussion, even just to organize that piece, if it remains a free lot and delineating. And then the other challenge he said is Little League goes through July 10th, 15th, like somewhere in there, depending on All-Stars. So
middle of July.
He's open to, you know, conversation, you know, like I said, walking the property and seeing, you know, what our thoughts are.
Okay. Good. Well, maybe we can schedule a meeting or schedule a time to meet him over there and do that soon. Okay. So I think there was a real good discussion about other places. I think what Charlie has turned up basically is, depending upon how we go forward, there's over 100 spaces that could be made available. Obviously with education and change of behavior, but that's quite a number of spaces when you think about it, that are out there. We need to figure out how to get people to utilize them, whether it's employees or visitors, which leads to the conversation about the wayfinding program with Merje that we've been talking about. And Merje had a meeting, or they made a presentation with you all, and then they also made a presentation at the council meeting last month. And they have roughly suggested that they think that if we were to embark on the entire Merje program, we may be looking at a total expenditure of $250,000. And that's bringing new signage program for the entire city from Route 1 on into town, running it all the way down into the parking and the various subcategories. But one of the things, and that was obviously somewhat of a staggering number for council members to consider, and I agree, But one of the things that we talked about was the idea of fracturing that into components and working our way out of the city. And maybe the first thing of Merge that we ought to consider is getting them to come back to us with a price of what it would take to just define the signage for parking and how that would go forward. And what would that look like? Is that $30,000? Is it more? I don't know. And then grow it over the ensuing years to get out to Route 1 so that we would get into the whole program. As you're aware, I think, Rehoboth last year, they're engaged in the same program with Merge, and they opted to go for the entire rebranding of their signage program with the Merge program. And their branding program is came in at $300,000. And City Council in Rehoboth voted to go forward with that all in one fell swoop. We can take a different approach, and I think probably given our budget situation, we may want to, but I do think what we've heard today and what we all know is, and Nancy did a great job last year of showing us just how obscure our signage is and how it's hard to see. I think we need to think seriously about making a recommendation to council, how we feel about moving forward with some kind of signage program to move this along. So I'll throw it open for comment.
Are there any grants available for this? I know grants take time, and that's and that could delay things. But are there any sources of money we could be going after to help with this?
I'm not aware of any. Anne Marie, you want to comment?
The only one I can really think of offhand is the Community Transportation Fund through the legislators.
Yeah. I don't believe that they participated in Rehoboth in that program.
But they did participate in our design work.
Exactly.
On the phase that we're in now.
Right. Anyway, I do think that it's something, maybe we can get Merge to go back, maybe we can go back to Anne-Marie, we can go back to Merge and ask them to break out what they think it would take to do parking.
Well, so we're supposed to have a workshop with them, one more workshop in January. So I've started the process of getting possible dates for that. So
okay.
I can include, mention that.
Okay, good.
I mean, I think it's hard on this committee for all of us. I mean, you and Andrew and Anne Marie are more familiar with what the actual city finances are right now. So it's hard to comment for many of us. But I really don't see how we can truly address parking if we don't address the signage situation, because even as we improve lots or increase number of spaces in different lots, if no one can figure out how to get to those, and it's just luck where you happen to, what direction you happen to turn as you come into town, they won't get utilized.
Right. So, all right, well, we'll get some more information on signage breakout. Anne Marie is in the process of beginning to put together the budget for next year, which will be out to council at the end of January. So if we have this workshop with Merge in early January, then hopefully we can get an idea of what it would cost, and we can talk further at our next meeting about how that would all come together and what recommendation we might want to make to council, or for Anne Marie to plug into the budget for council's consideration. Okay. And then moving on then to C5 is operations of the meters downtown. As you know, a few years ago, we expanded the meter operation from 9 to 6 to 9 to 8. I think that has, people have got accustomed to that, and that seems to be working well. Then this year with the pandemic, we suspended the hours of operation from 9 until noon in order to encourage people to come back downtown. That was very well received by locals. The question is, there's been an ask made, would we consider doing that going forward, not having the meters go into effect? That does have an impact on revenue for the city. But it is something that I think, given the requests we've had, we need to at least consider and talk about. Matt or Derek is gone.
So Matt
unfortunately.
and Derica are both gone, and we've also lost Father Ross. So we're
So maybe we need to postpone this discussion until next time and put it higher on the agenda. The other thing that isn't on here, but I think as another recommendation, is our meters have been at the same rate of $1 an hour for nearly 10 years. And we are woefully lower than all the surrounding communities who have meters. And would we recommend the council consider a change in the meter cost per hour? Rehoboth has varying costs depending upon proximity to downtown. Randy, you were going to say something.
I was going to say, based on also what Derica kind of mentioned today, is that would be a great way, one, to increase revenue, but also to get people the mindset, if you think of like a dartboard or something, is working your way out this way to where you've got free, some costs, most costs, you know. I think that's a good thing that we should really consider.
We did this a year, about 4 or 5 years ago, when it used to be that the meters were all $1 an hour, and recognizing the demand for the beach parking, we raised the beach parking to $1.50 an hour. And that has gone forward without any problem. Now, obviously that's a specific clientele that's going just to the beach. But it is, as you suggest, Andrew, a possibility that we could stagger the cost of meters depending upon the location.
Perhaps this is a way to fund signage to those free lots. It's to increase the, you know.
Yep, I agree.
And it could play into Derica's other idea of incentivizing people, is if somehow we can track where they're parking. Maybe we have a couple of spots right on 2nd Street that are the sort of winners of the most usage of the free lots and they get that spot for a week or two, you know.
Interesting.
Andrew, she mentioned the $1,000 winnings. That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, me too, Charlie. I'm parking that thing all year.
I think you're gonna have competition. I've been watching Carolyn's face. I think she's gonna sign up to get that food.
She knows where that Schley lot is now, doesn't she?
She'll be using it every day. Okay.
Mayor, I'd just like to say that meterless mornings was very popular, and I think it's safe to say that there aren't too many merchants that would be opposed to that.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. Okay, all right. Well, I think there's a lot there to consider as we go forward. And I think it's important that we get Father Ross and Derica and Matt as part of this discussion, along with Betsy, before we make any recommendations on that. So we have a pretty full agenda for coming back together. And I guess based upon Charlie's pulling some things from the fire marshal and tweaking some of the other plans, we're looking, and the fact that the holidays are nearly upon us, we're looking in early January to get back together. So looking at that first week in January, which begins on a Monday, the 4th, could we conceivably meet on Friday the 8th?
Flexible.
8:30? That work for you, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather the committee. I can always be flexible around what's better for the committee.
Okay. Carolyn, does that work for you?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so then let's plan to get back together on Friday the 8th at 8:30. And hopefully by then we can begin to pull some of these recommendations together to take to council. Okay. Anything else anybody would like to bring forward? Is there anything that we haven't discussed that we should make sure we put on the next agenda? Okay. Hearing none, how about a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. I think it's been a very productive discussion here this morning. We'll get finalize some things with M&T and get going. Thanks for attending. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.